whatever you want to achieve is all going to be down to your mindset and the way you think and feel, and you understanding that the only thing holding you back is your own brain. And this is why it's so important, and why I'm such a big advocate for coaching. The fastest way for you to accelerate to where you want to be with whatever you want is to go to someone who's already doing it, who's done it thousands of times. What happens is when you go and work with someone who's done something a lot of times before, it gives you certainty and belief in yourself. And you know, when you start to doubt the process of like, oh, I'm not seeing results right now, my fat loss, I'm feeling tired, I'm feeling this, you're like, oh, but Charlie's done this 10,000 times. Like, he's got this, I just need to do what I'm told. And then if I'm not sure of anything, I'll just ask him any questions. That other person's going to be able to step in and tell you, tweak this, do this, try this. And it's that external accountability outside of your own head, which is super important.
What is going on, everybody? Guys, welcome back this week to another amazing, very exciting, and very impactful episode of the Superhuman Life. As always, guys, I'm your host, Frank Rich. And before we get into today's conversation and introducing our guest today, I just want to remind you how incredibly grateful, thankful we are to have you here with us today. Guys, back again this week, episode 122. Once again, you've heard me talk about this for the last couple months now, but it's truly remarkable and amazing what this podcast and what this movement has truly become. So just want to let you guys know out there, if you're a regular listener, you're a regular subscriber to this podcast, we are so incredibly grateful to have you in here in our world. And we want to know how this show is impacting your lives. So if you want, guys, please send me an email to frankrich.fitness@gmail.com. If this podcast has done anything in your life, if it's had an impact, if it's helped you, if it's led you to maybe finding freedom, if it's led you to a breakthrough in your life, if it's led you to overcoming an addiction or pursuing fitness or pursuing passion, launching a business, whatever it may be, if the show is helping you become the man that you were created to be, then we want to hear from you. Now, today's guest, guys, is truly impacting the world at a massive scale. I've seen him in some areas recognized as UK's top trainer. He's built an empire. He's built a fitness company that has positioned him and enabled him to travel the world, from the UK to Dubai to Spain to now he's up in Canada. Like, literally the man travels the world, impacting, connecting with his clients. He's amassed a social media following of over 500,000 on Instagram alone, in addition to YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, a podcast. Guys, who I'm talking about is none other than Charlie Johnson, the CEO and founder of Charlie Johnson Fitness. And we unpack a little bit about Charlie's story of getting into fitness and how it became such a passion in his life, and how it became ultimately what it is today with this business and this empire that is literally coaching thousands of people every single month. We talk about limiting beliefs and how they hold so many of us back in life. And then obviously having somebody of Charlie's stature, right, in the fitness space, we wanted to really unpack transforming your physique, changing your body. So we talk about, why is hypertrophy the best approach from a training perspective? And how can you combine that style of training with nutrition? What are some of the other things that people don't think about, and why you need a coach to help you transform your physique? We then, like I said, we unpack limiting beliefs and how you can begin to find your passion, begin to pursue it. And maybe some of you out there want to take that next step. You want to make that leap from where you're currently sitting right now to building a secondary business. So we give you some real practical and some real tangible advice that you can walk away with. But as always, guys, we want to make these conversations valuable to you. So wherever you are in life right now, whatever you're currently going through, there's something in this conversation. But we want to get into it today, guys, with none other than Charlie Johnson, a wealth of knowledge, a true inspiration, somebody that's truly making an impact and putting a dent in the world. So let's get into today's conversation, guys. Transform your body to transform your life with none other than Charlie Fitness. Hope you guys enjoy. Charlie, my brother, welcome to the Superhuman Life, brother. How you doing?
Yeah, very good, very good. And I know all of your listeners will agree with this. You have an aura and a personality that comes across even via video and via audio that just is very uplifting, which is why as soon as we came onto this, I felt in a more positive mood. Like, your energy and vibe that carries over from that is really, really good. So it's awesome to see.
Wow, brother. Well, that means a lot, man. I mean, I really want to get into you and just what you've built and truly this empire and how you're going out there. And I mean, literally changing thousands of people's lives every single day through all the work. So hearing that from you, man, is an absolute honor. So thank you so much. I'm assuming it's probably because I literally have shot 500 plus videos in the last year and a half. Like I literally feel like I just live in front of the camera talking. So maybe it's just I've evolved into this, but that means a lot, man. Thank you, Charlie. Yeah, super excited, man. You know, like I said, we've been in this group here. You know, I think I got a chance to connect with you back in January of 2020 when you were here with Chris. So I interviewed Chris at the time. I don't know if you remember, but we definitely connected at some point in that mastermind. But it's been really cool for me to just watch your growth over the last couple of years with what you're doing in your business and everything. So I want to unpack that, obviously, talk about how you got to the point where you are today, really get kind of, you know, the original story of getting into fitness. But I think the first question I wanted to ask you, Charlie, is you've built this empire, right? This fitness and media empire. I think you're approaching 600,000 on your Instagram. You got a good, strong YouTube channel, and you're all over the place. But at the same time, you're also all over the place traveling the world. So question number one is, A, have you reached a point that when you're in airports and when you're in different cities, you're being recognized? And a follow-up to that, when you are, is it, hey, Charlie Johnson, hey, Charlie Johnson Fitness, or hey, aren't you that fitness guy from Instagram?
I'm laughing because the first time that comes to mind is I went to Finland, to Lapland, and I went to this place called Ivalo, like an airport in the arse end of nowhere. And I went to go get my bag off. So I was like, hey, aren't you Charlie Johnson? I follow you on Instagram. And I was like, this is just fucking random. Because I was literally like in the middle of nowhere. There was like 20 people in the airport. So yeah, it's a really, really bizarre thing to do. And it's always awkward. You probably know what I mean in terms of, because like people stare at me sometimes. I'm like, they either think I'm a twat because I've got big bleached blonde hair and I'm super tanned and I might be wearing a vest or something, or they recognize me for a good way. And I'm like trying to analyze really quickly in terms of their body language about how they're approaching me or whatever it might be. But yeah, it's a very, very strange thing. And I think talking about limiting beliefs is one of the things I'm a big believer in trying to break, because we all have limiting beliefs. I'm actually naturally a very introvert person. And one of the things you said, you spend your life in front of the camera. This is now my second podcast today. I did a video interview earlier, as we talked about earlier. Like for someone who's naturally very introvert and have limiting beliefs, you could destroy limiting beliefs if you learn the right skills to overcome those, which I think is something that's very powerful.
Yeah, and how do you define introvert? Because this is something that I've really had to unpack for me, because I think I'm the same. Like by my nature, I'm an introvert. By my nature, I'm actually a very quiet person. Like I've had to force myself to get to this point. And I think a lot of people think introversion or being an introvert is like you just don't want to be around people. But curious what your definition of introvert is.
I think it's fairly similar to what you said. I think I used to be very quiet. I wouldn't really speak up. I lacked confidence. And I don't like crowds. I still don't really like crowds, just because it's just the way I am and who I am. And I think the big thing I had before is that because I lacked confidence in who I was physically and mentally, I didn't want to put myself out there to be shot down, which is why it put me into like an introvert, like reclusive sort of mindset. Whereas after a while, you suddenly realize that those are the things that hold you back in life, because you're not going up and talking to the person you want to talk to, like a business event. You're not going up and talking to the girl you want to talk to. You're not doing whatever it is that's going to lead you to the thing you want in life, because you're afraid of rejection. When the reality is you need to learn that like rejection and failing is actually good a lot of the time, because you learn from those things, and it's character building almost.
Absolutely. No, love that so much. And it kind of gets us to the point, the first question was kind of a fun one. Kind of gets us to really the launching off point of where I wanted to start it with you today, right? You've built this incredible fitness business, right? It's enabled you to travel the world. I mean, from Dubai to you're in Canada now, literally all around the globe over the last couple of years. But I'm assuming it all started with your own physical transformation. So can you maybe take us back in time a little bit and kind of give us a genesis story of how you even got into fitness and how that has literally led you to the point where you're impacting, millions at this point?
So this is a very different story than a lot of people in fitness in my background. So I originally used to be overweight when I was younger. And I think it's one of the things that is still a skeleton that's in my closet now. And it's also why I'm so driven to help people not make the same mistakes I maybe made, and also why I'm so passionate in terms of education and teaching people the right habits, mindset, and skills they need for life. So I had a weird thing, for example, where I wouldn't drink water. I'd only wanted to drink orange juice. I didn't like water for whatever reason. So like you can imagine how many calories I was drinking in that when I was like 15. So I managed to phase myself out of that, and then I managed to start playing sport again at like a reasonable level. I then qualified as a trainer when I was 18. I was training people in the gym. I thought I knew everything, like all trainers do. I knew nothing. There you go. I realized I wasn't training the right demographic I wanted. Long story short, I went and became a ski instructor to the ski season, doing that in France, and came back from that because of ski season's end, because winter finishes. And I was like, I don't want to go into personal training anymore. I want to go into fitness. I have to go into property. I want to make some money. So I was like, went into property industry. I did really, really well in that. I managed to branch for a real estate agent for about 7 years. And during that process, when I was probably about 25, I started to get the fitness bug again. Like, I'd still been training, but I just wasn't, I was doing like what everyone else does. I was going to the gym. I wasn't seeing results. Like, same person you see for the last 5 years, it didn't really change. And then the penny dropped. I was like, why am I doing this? I'm spending all this time, money, and going. Nothing's happening. I'm just spinning my wheels. So I finally like committed to seeing progress in myself and maximizing what I could do. And I hired a coach, did a fitness show. And throughout that process, I really learned and discovered who I was and how hard I could push myself, and realizing that that extra 10% of effort is what's going to give you 50% more rewards. Basically, off the back of that, I then had people coming to me who wanted to know how I'd done what I did, because my transformation was fairly traumatic at the time. And then I saw social media was happening, and saw what I could do with it. And then one thing led to another, with me just sharing educational information. 3 years ago, I left my real estate job, and then now sky's the limit in terms of just removing my own limiting beliefs. Even I have now, like, people might put me on a pedestal, but I still have my own limiting beliefs in terms of what can be achieved. And I'm still working on those demons to remove those, which I think is really important for people to be aware of, because something's really powerful is you have to understand that when you progress, the people you then compare yourself to feel inferior will just be bigger and greater. So you'll still have sometimes that same feeling, just at a different level, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I really, really love about you, and it's such an attractive trait and quality that you possess, Charlie, is your vulnerability and your just true authenticity. Here you're talking about, like, yeah, you could easily walk around like with this ego like the size of Canada, for since that's where you're at right now, just like because you've proven that you can succeed, and it sounds like you've proven that you can succeed in multiple vectors of your life, right? Like, it started in a successful fitness transformation, and then it moved into successful, real estate career, and then it's now transitioned into, like I said, and I've used this terminology, building a true fitness empire that is impacting the globe. But at the same time and same token, it's like you're going to openly share, some of these skeletons that are still in your closet right now. So I'm going to acknowledge you for that. And then I see the activity that you have, like, in our coaching group. Like, you're one of the most like active question answers or question askers there. So you're always looking. You don't care if if you're learning from somebody that is just getting started, or, like you said, that is light years and ahead of where you're at. So you can always learn something from everybody. Where did that trait in you come from?
So this is really interesting. I sort of alluded to it earlier on. When I was 18, 19, I used to think I knew everything about fitness, because I don't know, I could deadlift X amount, I could bench press X amount, whatever, like, what do you do? That's great. But I now look back and I'm like, if you weren't so naive and so closed-minded, what could you have achieved? And I feel very much now that I'm almost trying to play catch up, because I feel like I not wasted, but I didn't optimize and maximize from maybe 20 to 27. And I now feel that I'm like, I don't want to let any moment pass. I want to learn as much as I can, and I want to be open-minded to learn from the best people with everything. I think the biggest mistake too many people make is they think they know everything. So I feel like I know nothing still. I trained with a guy, Eric Seifert, here a couple of days ago for like 90 minutes. I learned more in that 90 minutes than I learned in the last 3 years in the gym. And I was so humbled afterwards that I was like, you still have so much more. Like, this is infinite. Because if you look at it from a training perspective, we still don't actually really understand how the human body works. So anyone who tells you they know everything is lying, because it's not true. Because no one knows. Like, the reason, like, it just hasn't been done. We don't understand how some of the processes still work in the human body. So from that point of view, you have to be very open-minded. And what you're talking about from the business point of view is you have to understand from a business perspective, there's multiple different ways to grow a fitness business, for example. So, like, the way I have is working for me, but it doesn't mean that a different strategy someone else is doing at a smaller scale, that I can't learn from them as much as they can learn from me. And I'm open-minded enough to ask that. And like, one of the things you might have noticed before you listened to my stuff, I love like quotes and analogies. And one of my favorite sayings is, a genius doesn't have great answers. He asks great questions. So I always be very inquisitive, and I always ask people, like, even just for feedback, like, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? I might not necessarily listen, but I will ask people's opinions, because the biggest mistake that I think we will inherently make, and it's for everyone listening to this, is confirmation bias. Because you have made or designed something, you think it's great, it doesn't necessarily mean anyone else can think it's great.
Yeah, love that. Love that. I'm a big quote guy too. And the one that kind of came to me when we were talking about questions is Tony Robbins, right? The quality of your life is a direct result of the quality of the questions that you ask. And, I had Dr. John DeMartini. I'm not sure if you're familiar with his work. He spends a lot of time in helping people understand their values. And he said, like, you want to know what you value in life? Pay attention to the questions that you ask. So there's a lot rooted in that, how you think will reveal to you what's most important to you, because what you're thinking are going to be the questions that you ask to people. I want to ask you a follow-up question though, on kind of like the younger Charlie, like the ego, kind of like overconfident individual. Cause this is something I've had to kind of like wrestle with and unpack in my own life, right? Like, because early Frank 20s, like, same thing. Like, you couldn't tell me anything. I had the world figured out by 21, at least in my eyes. And I think a lot of that ego, or a lot of that overconfidence, helped me early through my 20s, right? Because, like, I was just going to do whatever I wanted to, because you couldn't tell me no. Now I've had to go back due to certain circumstances, like, getting slapped upside the head and kind of hitting rock bottom just through series of events. So for you, I'm curious, like, do you think maybe some of the early success that you had in your fitness, and maybe even in the real estate career, was because of this overconfidence, just the ability to like seek out and do it? And now you're at a point where you were able to maybe accelerate some of that growth. So you got to a certain point, and now to get you to that next level, it's kind of having forced you to kind of go back and relearn some of these early mistakes. So did I make sense in the question I was asking?
100%.
Curious your thoughts around that.
I'd actually say so I did a lot of work last year with psychologists, and I'm very open to talking about that, because sometimes I think necessarily finding happiness and finding what you want in life is sometimes a very difficult thing. And also understanding how to control your own emotions is very important. And I think a lot of this comes from your childhood in terms of the way you were brought up. So I've had feedback before that I can be very emotionless and cold. And a lot of that comes back from not a bad thing necessarily, I wasn't doing it purposely, but not being loved by my parents, in terms of like, they love me, but not like hugging me or whatever. So it's almost like a big thing of seeking approval from them. But the two big things I identified, which are good and bad, that drive me, and it would have driven me when I was younger. One would be insecurity, because I was insecure of who I was and what I wanted to achieve. And the other one was fear, because I was afraid of failing. And the other thing would be trying to make my parents proud, and trying to like prove a point to them that I don't need anyone else, and that I can do it alone, if that makes sense. So I think people are either motivated by the carrot and the stick. For me, people always either run away from pain or run towards pleasure. I've always been more of a characteristic of running away from pain, but that's important for you to identify, and then you just need to learn to manage it, because when you can learn to manage what motivates you, it then can become a superpower, but you just need to compartmentalize that mentally, almost, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. And, this is deep into, the work that I do. I've obviously studied pleasure motivation, pain motivation, because, my guys that I coach and work with are obviously seeking some type of pleasure. But oftentimes when we really get to the root of it, it's understanding that what they're running from is the pain in the pursuit of the pleasure. So this is really good stuff here. I want to get back into the fitness stuff, because you talked about some of the mistakes that you made early on, and how now one of your missions is to help people. So having coached, at this point, I'm assuming thousands of people, may even be, above that number. What are some of the common, mistakes that you see people making in their fitness journey first? Let's start there.
I think if we look at two aspects, I think we look at, firstly, from a training perspective, the most common mistake, and I'm going to say it to every single person who listens to this, including myself, is people move weights way too quickly. If you slow the tempo down of whatever you're doing, you'll make the muscle work harder, you'll destroy your joints less. It is as simple as that. Someone commented one of my posts over there being like, slow reps don't build muscle, it has to be explosive. And I was like, do you understand how this actually works? Like, people just don't if you think how muscle fibers actually work, it doesn't make any sense. So that's probably the biggest thing I'd say. And I think the second thing is thinking about trying to actually control form, and understanding what you're trying to get out of a movement, rather than just moving weights around, and thinking about like doing things correctly. I know it sounds like a dad talking down to a son sometimes, but the amount of times people get injured from doing stupid things like A really good example was a really viral video that I was involved with. It was a friend of mine, Ryan Crowley, tore his pec when I was training with him in
Oh, I
Dubai.
remember that.
Like
You were
literally,
there.
yeah, I was spotting him on one side. Larry Wheels was behind him, and it was my idea to do incline bench press, and I was running the session. So I felt partly guilty. But for anyone who wants to watch, go onto my YouTube channel and type in Ryan Crowley pec tear. The video before that was like watching a car crash, because he literally couldn't get his hand back anywhere near like towards his shoulder because he had no shoulder mobility. The set before, I think he did like, the weight was retarded. He did like 180 kilos for like 8 reps on an incline bench press. And then he was like, oh, I want to do 220. Like, I'll do it if you do it, Larry, to Larry Wheels. And I was like, Ryan, this isn't a good idea. And he tried to unrack it once, couldn't unrack it. And I was like, Ryan, look, just do 200. Like, that's still like a lot of weight. And he was like, no, I've got this. And then obviously what happened. So that's quite a weird thing if you watch that back. And if you ever watch a grown man cry, it's always an awkward experience. But things like that are a prime example of why you've got to think about cause and effect and what's the end result you're looking to get from the action you're taking. And that can be from a training point of view, an emotional point of view, in a relationship, business. Like, if you're looking to build muscle mass, doing less than 6 reps is probably not going to be optimal in anything. In particular, something like an incline bench press, doing 2-3 reps on something like that, max weight, is going to be causing problems. So I say those are probably the biggest mistakes I think most people make from a training aspect, would be moving too fast and then trying to use too much weight with poor form. Would be 2 generalizations. I'm not sure if those are the sort of answers you were expecting.
Yeah, no, I wasn't expecting anything. That's why I tossed up the question to you, but I think it gives us an area that we can kind of maybe zero in on a little bit. I didn't know that you were there with Ryan when you tore that pec. I mean, it's probably one of the most gruesome muscle tears that I've ever seen. Obviously, I've seen a lot of injuries in the gym. That thing was just absolutely gruesome. So guys, we will get that video linked down in the show notes. And for everybody listening in the States, when he says 200, he's talking kilos.
Like?
I correct.
Yes,
right? So that's like
kilos.
420 plus pounds. Just trying to do the math. I think it's 2.2. So if you heard 200, like a 200 pound incline bench, that's not big. Like, no, he's inclining over 400
The one
pounds.
who actually tore his pec on, he tried to do 5 plates. So that's
had 5 plates on it. Yeah, it's 495.
Yeah.
495.
That's like retard.
So
that's insane.
Yeah, no, I love everything you said there. You know, I'm a student of RTS. You know, I've trained with Ben quite extensively. I literally was, I was in the gym and my 40 before it was even open to the public. So I got this muscle intelligence background as well, and I think that's a lot of the things that you're talking about here as well. But we haven't really zeroed in on it on the episode. To be really enjoy maybe talking about the process of building muscle, because you said something when you're saying when you understand how a muscle actually works and what is the process of building it. So can you kind of walk through your process of how you explain and articulate? How do you actually grow a muscle?
Well, if we think about it from a logical, like basic standpoint, a muscle will grow when it's basically being put under demand from an adaptive response to basically grow bigger again. So the muscle fibers during training, they're going to break down. We're then going to have an excess amount of protein, calories to come in, and our body's going to be able to facilitate repair from that. Now, if we're thinking about how we're getting muscle to actually work, we're essentially going to be trying to put the muscle under tension. So our body doesn't understand load. It doesn't know if we're doing 5 plates on an incline bench press or 2 plates. All it knows is tension going through the muscle, which is why it comes back to how good the form is in terms of where you're actually placing that tension and how long are you keeping that muscle under a load, because the goal is to work the muscle, not the movement and not the connective tissue, which is where I think people need to really understand the difference between like training for muscular growth and like powerlifting. Powerlifting, we're looking to be as efficient as possible and use as many muscles as possible and basically just get it to move as quickly as you can. When you're looking to build muscle, and from a hypertrophy point of view, we're essentially trying to be as inefficient as possible and make the muscle work as hard as possible, isolating everything. So it's almost like a completely different aspect. I think one of the issues I've come across, and I really noticed this when I went to the Arnold Classic in Columbus a couple of years ago, how much everyone in North America loves the bench press. And I think a lot of it is obviously because of American football and stuff like that. Everyone wants to know how many reps you can do on 225 or whatever. So people have this huge association with just trying to move weight as quickly as possible. Now, if your primary goal is building muscle mass, you can build muscle obviously doing that, but it's not going to be the optimal way to doing it. And to get muscle to grow, we just need to try and put it under tension, create an adaptive response, get it to break down, have the right amount of nutrients there to get to repair, allow enough time for recovery, and then train it again. And in terms of allowing enough time for repair, scientifically it's shown that muscle tissue should repair within 48 hours. Anything beyond that is generally going to be inflammation. But one of the key drivers that a lot of people don't look at is in terms of allowing enough time to recover and not doing too much volume. So one of the best things I found with clients and myself is to have a lower volume approach in terms of building muscle, in terms of like number of sets per muscle group per workout, but have a higher frequency. So for example, you could train a muscle group every 5 days versus every 7 days. And then you're going to get more progress, for example, over a year, because you've got more opportunities to break that muscle tissue down, repair it, let it grow, and then do it again, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. I'm curious with you, you're a transformation coach, right? Like if anybody goes to your Instagram and just looks at the success stories, like some of the best transformations. I mean, and it's one after one, boom, boom, boom. Like it is nonstop, which I'm curious how you've been able to produce those results at scale. But I want to talk first about, because we're talking about hypertrophy training, right? So why hypertrophy for transformation versus HIIT or versus metabolic training or versus powerlifting or any of these other types of training? Why specifically muscle building and hypertrophy to produce the type of transformations that you're creating?
That's a good question. So the key for that is you're thinking about, we can try and train to shape and structure. So this is going to be from just two sides of the coin. Obviously, we're going to have the training aspect and we're going to have the nutrition aspect. 95% of the clients come to us are going to be in a situation where they either need to lose a lot of body fat and need to build muscle, or they're skinny fat and they need to build muscle. So we're going to have to try and have the nutrition aligned, so it's going to allow that body fat to trim off as well. And with this type of training, it's allowing us to create some sort of energy demand in terms of burning some calories, although that's not the primary reason we're doing weight training. But it's allowing us to add more muscle to our frame, which is going to change the shape and the aesthetics of the way you look. So, for example, another great example is like people sometimes don't like training their abs. It's like, it's important to train your abs and to develop your abs more, because the bigger a muscle is, the more defined it is, the more developed it is, the more it's going to start to press through the skin, and then the easier it is for you to be able to see it. It's one of the great examples. A lot of people get a huge amount of confusion in regards to creatine, thinking like, oh, creatine's going to cause loads of water retention. It's like, yes, creatine causes water retention, but it's intramuscular within the muscle cell. So it's not going to, like, the layer between your skin and the muscle of subcutaneous fat is not going to increase water. It'll actually make the muscle press harder against the skin and make you look leaner with the water retention, because the muscle's going to be fuller rather than making you look watery. It's where people need to sometimes understand the logic of the processes a little bit more.
God, love that. Love that. We're literally shattering people's limiting beliefs just through the process of having this conversation here right now about training. So I get that 100%, why we want to do the hypertrophy training. Now, nutrition wise, like, do you have a specific approach, or once people come into you, like, do you look at their current situation and then you kind of assess what they need from a nutritional standpoint?
So the big thing, as I was saying, I've come across the last few weeks, I have principles. I like this sort of word. So I have principles that I like to sort of stick to, that I think are very important. So they come down to like food choices, and then also nutrient time in terms of carbohydrates. So first thing I look at is the person's schedule. So how often do they want to work out? What time are they going to be working out? And what their goal is. Those are the main key factors. But the main thing we would do with every single client, me and my team, is we will have nutrients timed around when the person's going to be working out. So I'm a big believer in nutrient timing and pushing carbohydrates around a workout and in the workout as well. So I would always, 90% of the time, recommend the client has intra-workout carbohydrates to facilitate harder training, to create more of an adaptive response during the workout, to then, and also I think in my opinion, I believe it has a positive effect on metabolism, to get your body to start utilizing carbohydrates better. So I'm a big fan of pushing carbohydrates in the workout, before the workout and after the workout. And then depending on how many calories and carbs to have at play, we would space the rest of the carbohydrates probably further away from that. We'd also do like two forms of nutrition with the client. So we would have a rest day diet and a training day diet. So the day they're lifting weights will be higher carbohydrates. The day they're not lifting weights will be lower carbohydrates, maybe slightly higher fats. And this will create a natural carb and calorie cycle throughout the week. And as things progress, if the calories go up, these can get a little bit more aggressive in terms of the difference between the two. But this is a really good way in terms of allowing clients to have more food on the days they need it, when they've got a higher energy expenditure on days they're weight training, and slightly less on the days they don't need to be eating as much because they're not doing resistance training. And it will allow them to be in a deficit over the week for like a macro, rather than necessarily on some of the training days they might be at, say, maintenance, but the rest days are going to pull them down overall. And then the energy expenditure from training, or maybe a little bit of cardio, will do the rest of the work, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. What do you use in intra workout for the carb source?
The best intra-workout carb source, in my opinion, is cyclic dextrin carbohydrate powder. One, because it's a low molecular weight, doesn't pull blood into the gut. And one of the things, like, I don't know why it always sticks in my head. I remember when I was a kid, my mum used to be like, after like on holiday, after you've eaten, you're not allowed to go swimming because of the blood's in your stomach and you'll get cramp and you'll drown. Like, it never happened. I still went swimming anyway. But like, there is some truth to that. It's like if you ingested a load of like, if you ate a massive bowl of rice and then like start trying to deadlift, like the blood's going to get pulled to your stomach to try and digest that. So with cyclic dextrin, it doesn't have that effect quite as much. So one thing I would be wary of this, and I've noticed a lot with some supplement brands, is they will market a product as like a carbohydrate powder. So always look on the label, and they'll say it's carb whatever. So like Gaspari Nutrition did this with glycofusion, and it pissed me off because I used to really like the product. It used to be all cyclic dextrin, and then they took out half the cyclic dextrin and put in something called pea starch, and that will, for probably 90% of people, using the pea starch as carbohydrates because it's cheaper, will pretty much destroy your stomach. So, because it happened to me, I was like, what's causing this issue? I looked at the back of the container, I was like, this isn't what it used to be. So I would always be very wary of that. So you just literally want cyclic dextrin. Another alternative would be something like dextrose, or if you're becoming a bit of a fitness traveling gypsy like me, you sometimes don't have access to these things just for convenience. I might use something like apple juice. I'll just drink apple juice. Like, it's just easy sugars, and it doesn't have too much of a problem for me.
Yeah, no, that's great. I got turned on to brand cyclic dextrin, I think in 2014. John Meadows passed away. We lost John last year, but I saw my biggest progress and growth in that 3-year span from 14 to 16, and it was a staple. It was 25 grams on, low body parts, 50 to 75 grams on back in leg days. So right there with you, and we were pairing it with essential aminos. I don't know if you pair it with any aminos, but that's a really powerful combo. What are some of the things that? Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say the way I would recommend, just to give some knowledge, some value to anyone, is that the way I would set up an intra-workout drink for most people is I would do a minimum for guys, at least 25 grams of carbohydrates, like you said. I'd do 20 grams of essential amino acids. I'd also add in an additional 20 grams of glutamine, and I'd also add 5 grams of creatine I'd use into workout as well. And then you could potentially add more electrolytes into that if none of those products have that.
Yeah, there you go, guys. We gave you the Charlie Johnson intra-workout cocktail right there. What other factors, play a role in a transformation that most people don't think about, right? We talked about the training, hypertrophy focus. We've talked about frameworks with nutrition here, having our intra-workout carbs. But you and I both know that's maybe like 20% of what actually leads to a person's physical transformation. And truthfully, all of that stuff is available on there. You don't need a podcast. You don't need a coach for that. So what are some of the things that play a role in a successful transformation that most people maybe listening to this or even coming into your program don't know about?
It's the most important thing that people don't understand, and this is the thing that's going to get you to achieve whatever you want in life. And I just want everyone to think about this. Like, forget fitness, forget anything. Like, whatever you want to achieve is all going to be down to your mindset and the way you think and feel, and you understanding that. Like, the only thing holding you back is your own brain, and this is why it's so important, and why I'm such a big component, like big advocate for coaching. I have probably 7 different people coaching in my life, from like fitness, nutrition, health, business, all that sort of different stuff, because the fastest way for you to accelerate to where you want to be with whatever you want is to go to someone who's already doing it, who's done it thousands of times. And a way I try and explain it to people is like, who would you rather go to? Would you rather go to you're going to have heart surgery? You're going to go to a heart surgeon who's never done heart surgery before? Or would you rather go to a heart surgeon who's done it 10,000 times, who can do it with his eyes closed when he's hungover? Like, you're going to go to the guy who's done it before. So this is one of the ways what happens with this when you go and work with someone who's done something a lot of times before. It gives you certainty and belief in yourself. And when you start to doubt the process of like, oh, I'm not seeing results right now with my fat loss. I'm feeling tired. I'm feeling this. You're like, oh, but Charlie's done this 10,000 times. Like, he's got this. I just need to do what I'm told. And then if I'm not sure of anything, I'll just ask him any questions. And that's the big thing. And you'll know the same thing, Frank, in terms of like when you've been coached with different aspects. It helps people keep people accountable. And then when you do hit a plateau with something, which is the same in fitness and business, you're going to hit a wall sometimes where like you're not going to see progress. That other person's going to be able to step in and tell you, tweak this, do this, try this. And it's that external accountability outside of your own head, which is super important. And I think from a fitness aspect, it's even more important than business, because the problem is with a fitness and like a body transformation it's very emotional because you're looking and judging yourself, and it's very difficult to make a logical, practical decision based upon that without your emotions overriding your choices, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, just because we talked about quotes earlier, another great quote is, once emotions enter into a situation, intelligence leaves it. And it's incredibly powerful, kind of talking about exactly what you're saying. And accountability is a big part of my life. It's a big part of what we create here at Rebuild Recovery and the Superhuman Life. And then obviously a big part of the mastermind that we're involved in as well. But I see a lot of people getting accountability wrong. They think like, I'm going to hire, or I'm going to bring this person in as accountability, and they're going to be the ones that keeps me straight, not realizing that it's a two-way relationship, right? Like, I can only hold you accountable to the things that I don't know that you're doing. And I think a lot of people, sometimes they don't fully share what's going on. So how have you seen this play out in your coaching and in your life, with people truly understanding what real accountability is?
So that's one of the things. I think people sometimes want to be spoon fed, and like, realistically, if I could do the workouts for you, I would. I love working out, but I can't. So like, it doesn't work like that. I'll deadlift or whatever all day long quite happily, but we can't do that. It's not practical. So the most important thing is understanding it's a feedback loop. So whatever it is, if it's in fitness, business, whatever, like, you have to understand that you have to articulate whatever your issues are, how you're feeling, and provide as much specific detail as possible, so the person on the other end who's trying to help you can understand what the challenge is. Because respectively, neither me nor Frank are mind readers. We haven't learned that skill yet, working on it. And like, we can probably, I can often gauge when something's off. So for example, if someone says they're sticking to their nutrition, they're doing all their training, and they're in a fat loss diet, and then they're not losing weight and they're a big deficit, I'm like, this doesn't make sense. So I'll start prodding and probing, asking questions. How's your sleep? How's your stress? Like, are you actually sticking to the diet? Like, what's your percentage adherence? Like, is it 50% you're sticking to it, or is it 100%? Because this is one of the things that's important to understand, is that human beings aren't robots. We're emotional creatures, and one person's interpretation of adherence to sticking to a diet is different than another person's. So I think it's sometimes important to articulate those things clearly to people, and once they understand that, it then becomes much clearer. And I think one of the things that I always like to do is I try and like to lead people to their own answers themselves. So I'll ask specific questions and be like, what do you think the issue is here? And I try and like lead them in circles so they almost come up to the solution themselves. Then they think it's their idea, which is then very self-empowering for them, and then helps the process, if that makes sense.
No, that's the greatest like joy and pleasure that a coach can get, is when you're having somebody that you're working with is struggling through a particular situation, and they're coming to you because they want you to solve the problem. And then they can see, like, you can see there's some resistance, because in your coaching you're just answering their questions with more questions to have them think deeper. But then there always comes that point when it clicks, and it's like the aha, I got it now. And it's like, all I had to do was lead you down the path. I think a lot of people get coaching wrong. They're thinking, like you said, that I'm going to be the one that does the deadlift for you. And that's not how coaching works. I want to make a slight pivot here and talk about pursuing passion. Because I know it's a lot of, obviously, what has led you to be able to create the success that you had. And I think a lot of people out there may be listening to this right now. Maybe they're in, maybe they're in a 9 to 5, maybe they're in their early stages of like a startup, business venture. And they're struggling to get through, and they're like, there's more for me. I'm not walking my passion, I'm not walking my purpose. So for you, when you were transitioning out of the real estate and getting into really building the fitness business that you now have, how were you able to go from a 9 to 5 to fulfilling out and living out your passion? Like, was there a process that you went through? Is there a way that you talk to people when they're saying like, I'm stuck because I'm not living life that I know I'm supposed to, or I can't find my passion? So yeah, let's open up the conversation on finding passion and how you were able to make that transition in your life.
That's a really, really great question. So thank you, Frank. I think, and this is something I'm hugely fond of. I might have to find the link and send it to you. So the day I walked out of my job, I filmed a video straight afterwards, because like, this is a life-changing moment. I need to like just capture this emotion of how I feel. I filmed it my phone, and then I put it on IGTV. So I'll find the link of like, I can't always watch it back because it's a bit cringe, but it's pretty sick. So I filmed a video like basically straight away afterwards. And one of the things that happened for me was, I remember my boss saying to me, the job I worked in was like 50% commission. So when, like, if you gave your notice in, you only get paid half of what you were due to get paid the next month. I'm not working for half price. So I basically just waited till I got paid. And then just like went into my office, I was like, I'm leaving. I told everyone there. I left, went home. My boss called me up and was like, you can't do this. You have to come back. And I was like, the penny dropped in my head. I was like, no, I don't. I don't have to go. I don't have to listen to you anymore. And I suddenly realized as long as I back myself and I work relentlessly hard, I never have to listen to anyone else ever again, like respectfully. And all I've ever wanted is to be able to do what I want, when I want, with who I want. That's my sole ambition, to have freedom. And for anyone who's in that rat race of being trapped right now, I took huge amount of inspiration from two people. One was Gary Vaynerchuk, who talks a lot about like side hustles and setting up side gigs, and then using social media. So I'd suggest checking out his books. And then the other one was Grant Cardone, he's more into sales and talks about real estate, so a bit of a carryover, talks about 10x action. So I was like, you know what, if I just do loads of action and work super hard, help loads of people, I will be able to get to where I wanted to be. And that was almost like the thought process in my mind as I started on that journey. And then the actual process of getting there probably took me about 2 years. And it was a lot of hustle and grind. Like there is, and that's what people don't see. They see the highlight reel of stuff on Instagram. But at one point I was competing in fitness shows. I was training 5 till like 6:30 in the morning. I'd work from 7:30 till 6 at my real estate job. I'd then go and train for 2 hours in the evening. I'd then come home and do my online coaching stuff. And I was like, and holding together a relationship just, and repeating that cycle for a long period of time. But that's one of the things that sometimes you have to understand, that for you to push the limits and get what you want, you're going to have to push yourself to the uncomfortable. And you're going to have people say to you, like, this is too much, you're like insane. But for you to achieve something that no one else can do, you're going to have to do things that people aren't willing to do. And those people who say, like, oh, it's too much, you work too hard, those are all the people who are still in those 9-to-5 jobs. And I remember a lot of the people I used, like, I'm still friends with them, the people I was in circles with back then would be not difficult. They'd say things like my partner being like, oh, Charlie's changed. It's not like he used to be because I didn't want to go and play Xbox and mess around, because I had a mission and I knew clearly what I wanted. And one of the things that's important for people to understand is, like, as you progress through life, the bigger and more successful you become, the bigger the shadow you can cast over other people that can then make them feel insignificant. And then they can almost then start to become a bit difficult with you in that respect. But the big thing I would say is just work really, really hard. Think about what you actually want. And then I would only quit your full-time job if you can set something up online as a side hustle when you're earning more from the side thing than the main thing, because that's basically what I did.
Yeah, wow. You really opened my eyes with something you said there when you talked about the bigger you get, the bigger the shadow that you cast. So this is something that I've obviously wrestled with like for years now, right? And I've had to remove myself from certain relationships because I was sick and tired of hearing, Frank, you've changed, Frank, you've changed, Frank, you've changed. And I never looked at it as that was their way of not projecting, because I don't think that's the right word. I don't think that they were trying to project anything onto me, but maybe I was projecting onto them and their reaction was there. So how have you like wrestled with this? Because I'm assuming that in your career, you've had to step out of relationships that you've just grown out of, that you just evolved out of. Have you wrestled with this internally, or just like, this is just a process of evolution in life and me growing and achieving higher levels of success? Have you had to wrestle with anything that I just shared with you there? And how have you been able to get through that?
That's probably been the most difficult thing I've had to deal with, in particular start of this year. So a weird way, I was thinking about it a lot yesterday, actually, funny enough, is I feel like you always have to like break yourself to remake yourself. And I feel like that's literally almost as like hard as it is, almost most talk about it. It's like almost destroy myself to remake myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It makes 100% sense. And so much to the point, Charlie, that you may not even remember meeting me in Clearwater, because I was 40 pounds lighter. I had a beard because I did literally have to break my body in order to build it back up. And it was a part of this entire kind of journey that I've been on, which has led me to having Rebuilt Recovery and the podcast, The Superhuman Life. The Superhuman Life is coming out of me going through this transition where I was so attached to this identity of being a bodybuilder and how people saw me physically in the world that I was so caught up in my own insecurities. I've literally had to, like, I broke myself down and I stepped out of the gym for 9 months, reevaluated myself, got clear on my identity. So it makes 100% sense. I appreciate you sharing that, Charlie.
Yeah, and I think that's just one of the things I think people need to understand, is that it's just part and parcel of the process. And I'd say one of the things I'd say to people who, if you're in a long-term relationship and you change and what you want changes, is think like your partner might not have signed up for who you're becoming, if that makes sense. Would be a different way to think about it. Like a lot of, and this, I know the audience know me well, so I can probably say this more, not in a sexist way, but many women don't necessarily want to have a partner who's going to be traveling all over the world and like working all the time and want to go fucking all in on stuff. They want security, a steady relationship, like stable environment, family, all that sort of stuff. And if you're trying to go out there, if anyone listens, to achieve something else, that's going to like create conflict, and that is going to be something that is going to have to be dealt with at some point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I want to talk about confidence, because for you, I'm assuming that you had this self reputation with yourself when you walked out of that job. Like you had the confidence because you had succeeded there. We talked about it earlier on as well. Like you just had this track record. But for the guy out there that is hearing this, maybe doesn't have that own self reputation, right? Like he hasn't had those wins in his life, but he wants to pursue those passions. What are some things that people can do, or what is the process of developing confidence in of yourself so you can then actually maybe have the confidence to step out and start the side hustle or start the second thing or ask for the raise or just gaining confidence in any endeavor of your life?
I would actually say one of the best things you can do is focus on two things. One, the people you surround yourself with, and two would be the content and the media you absorb. If you surround yourself with like growth-minded people who are going to try and help and support you and uplift you, that will naturally make you more confident and more outgoing and try and push you. If you don't have that environment of people, then listening to amazing podcasts like this are one of the great ways you can do that in terms of pushing the boundaries in terms of your own confidence and what can be achieved. Because if you live in a more remote area and you don't have that network of friends, it can sometimes be more difficult to get into that sort of group of people. So I think for me, for people gaining confidence, I think big thing is looking at the network, looking at the media you're absorbing, the information. I wouldn't watch mainstream media because that's just going to make you think the world's coming to an end every day. And then the last thing I would say is, it's actually something I'm working on, is trying to focus on celebrating all the small wins you make and all the progress you've done. Because, and I spoke with your great friend of yours, Vince Monti, about this today in terms of we become very focused on how today's going and what the future holds in terms of our happiness and progress in life. But sometimes we need to like look at what we've maybe achieved before and look at where we're at to where we are now, and try and look back to them, look forward and try and be more positive. And something I'm going to do when I get back to Dubai, I read this in Tim Ferriss's book, Tool of Titans. I can't remember who he referenced it to, but someone talks about this thing having like a jar of awesomeness. You have like literally a jar in your office that says like jar of awesomeness. Every time you do something sick that day, you write it down and you put it in there. And anytime you're having any self-doubt or you're not feeling great about whatever reason, just go and have a look, just to like give yourself context to small wins, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. I love that. Red Tool of Titans. We have the same library. As you mentioned Gary Vee. I got all of Gary Vee books over there. Grant Cardone sitting behind me. Tim Ferriss is down there somewhere as well. So no, it makes 100%. And, I tell the members in the mastermind, when they're having bad days or bad weeks, or they're struggling with creating the conversations, I'm like, go back and read the testimonials of your clients, read the work that you're doing and producing. And so much happens. Like sometimes when you just remind yourself of the good that you're producing or the good that you're creating. So that's really powerful.
I think that just reminds me of something. I think one of the things we can almost become dumb and blinded to that sometimes. So I went for coffee with a client here in Toronto, and a friend of mine came with me, and they said to me, like, "You're pretty awesome. Do you know that?" Just like based upon the feedback that the guy had saying, like how his life had changed. But because I'm used to hearing that all the time, it almost feels like people are blowing smoke up my arse, and I don't really seem to like take it in. But I think that's one of the things that anyone listening to this, and I need to like open up and be honest, I need to get better at taking positive feedback like that sometimes, because we shrug it off. But in reality is like, you actually have to understand how you've completely changed someone's life sometimes, and how much of a positive impact that's had on that person, but also maybe that person's wife, that person's kids, the immediate network from their colleagues they work with, and the influence you can have with that.
Yeah, that's so great. I want to ask you about travel hacks, and obviously staying fit and staying healthy and staying safe. I mean, you literally are traveling the world. I mean, I struggle like sometimes taking a 3-hour like weekend trip. Like, how do I get my food? You know what I mean? Like, because I don't want to have to carry. I did it for 10 years. I carried a cooler around everywhere I get, and I no longer want to do that. I don't want to be a slave to my Tupperware. And I don't think that's how you live. either. So I'm curious, like, what has worked for you, because you stay in incredible shape year round, or you just have so many videos and pictures of when you're shredding. Maybe you're 300 pounds right now. I don't know, you have a shirt on. But I'm assuming that you are always fit, because I do see the live stories behind the scenes. So how have you been able to do this with literally traveling the world? Like, what are some of the hacks? What are some things that work for you?
I can take the shirt off, but I don't think it's that type of podcast. But so actually, this is probably one of my favorite topics to talk about. So actually, I've traveled a lot, and I found like I originally had a lot of issues when traveling, and this is one of the biggest things that stresses shitloads of people out. In particular, I work with a lot of busy business execs, and like, oh, I'm traveling, I can't deal with this. This is too much. And I was like, this is the prime problem. So the first thing I say to anyone is think about, like, the worst thing you can do is just stress about the situation. And this is the thing that I've had to learn. It's like, you just have to learn to go with the flow. And it's the most important thing is learning to make best case scenario choices. So you're always going to have the option at breakfast, for example, in a hotel. You're either going to have eggs, you've got pancakes and maple syrup. I'm in Canada, so I reference maple syrup. And like, it's your conscious choice which one you're going to choose. There's always going to be a better and worst case scenario wherever you go. Same in terms of like going out for dinner. You can choose to go to as each much like Chinese restaurant or a steak restaurant. The steak restaurant's obviously going to be a better choice for healthy food options. Now, some implementable massive hacks that have made a huge difference to me. So I'll document what I did coming here into Canada to give an example. A big thing that I'd highly suggest everyone does, in particular if they're flying, is that they fast. So when you fly, it causes a huge amount of stress on your body. And this is one of the main reasons people tend to get digestive issues when they travel, is actually from the flying period. So firstly, I suggest you fast. For example, if I was going to go from London to Dubai, I would get the 9:10 flight from London in the morning. It would then land in Dubai, I think, at like 7:30 in the evening with the time difference. And I wouldn't eat anything. So I'd wake up in the morning, I'd get on the plane at 9 o'clock in the morning, not have breakfast, just drink black coffee, don't eat anything on the plane. Bang, I land in Dubai, 8 o'clock in the evening, eat no calories that day. I can have an awesome dinner, whatever I want, no digestive issues. Now, what's the real big win for this? Most people's primary goal is going to be fat loss. So if you're going on holiday or going on a business trip, you've already got banked probably 2,000 calories that you haven't eaten from day one. So if during that week you eat an extra ice cream, you have a beer, you have whatever, you've already got 2,000 calories to offset that. If you're flying back and you're doing the same thing, there's another 2,000 calories. So that already gives you 4,000 calories, for example, that you've then got leeway during the week to eat what you want intuitively. So that's a really simple method I'd recommend for most people. That's going to work really well in terms of protecting their digestion. It's going to remove a lot of stress for them in terms of like, oh, I don't know what to eat, blah, blah, blah. I haven't taken my food on the plane. So that's what I do, and it works phenomenally well. So that's a big thing I'd recommend. Some couple of tips for the flight. I'd recommend you try and drink as much water as you can. I'd always recommend you take electrolytes with you. I'd take electrolytes on the plane and also for when you land. So electrolytes are really critical in terms of brain function, how you generally feel, particularly like concentration. For anyone who works a lot, if you start to feel towards the end of the day brain fog and you can't concentrate, electrolytes can help a lot of that. So that would be a big hack. And then if you're dealing with like time difference, like when I came from Dubai to Vancouver like the other week, it was a 15-hour flight to Toronto and another 5-hour flight from Toronto to Vancouver and a 12-hour time difference. It was like 20 hours on a plane, 12-hour time difference. It's like, this is fun. So the best thing you can do to try and get yourself realigned with the new time zone works in with this fasting, because it's eating on your new circadian rhythm. So you want to eat for the time zone you're in. So I would try and not eat until you get to your new time zone and try and get your body aligned. Because if you think about this from a very basic form of how your body works, your body only knows what time of day it is off of two things. One, the sun being up and sunlight. Number two is you eating. So if you can control those two things, it's going to help you get into a new time zone quicker and overcome jet lag. So those would be some like implementable strategic things. And for a very basic form when it comes to workouts, I'd almost just try and, if you need to, scale workouts back, which is what I tend to do. I do, if you can get away with doing 2-3 workouts a week, like an upper lower body training program, just to get some stimulus to retain muscle tissue, that will work great. Keep within your calorie threshold of what you need to have. Make sure you hit protein and you'll probably get leaner. That's my general thesis.
Yeah, no, I love that. Love that. I'm a big fan of fasting. While I travel, I'll probably fast the entire week. that will be in Nashville. I think you're coming to Nashville too.
Yeah.
But that's just works for me. And then, like you said, if you're having dinners and you're going to be networking, and maybe there's going to be some events that you're going to, like, bank those calories later on in the day. I'm curious with you. I didn't know. I the first time I heard the whole the only way your body knows what time of the day is light in when you eat. So to hack that, are you traveling with any red lights? Are you bringing in any therapies that to help hack that process?
No, because you shouldn't really need to. Because if you think you're trying to get into the new time zone, when you say, for example, if I land in Dubai and it's at night time, I can't make darkness. I'm trying to make it see. And as soon as it's light, I'll just try and get exposure to that, like literally onto your skin, like even going outside, just to get your body to kick into that time zone more. That's really what you want to try and think of.
So are you more concerned then at that point with getting into the circadian time zone of the location versus getting the ample sleep? Like, you'll sacrifice an hour or two of sleep to make sure that you get set in the light time zone?
I would, because I think one of the things you'll find is you'll suffer more in the long run if you oversleep. Say, for example, I was going to fly from the UK to Las Vegas or whatever, somewhere in the US, and then I end up sleeping until like 11 a.m. in US time. Like, that's going to have more of a negative impact than me getting 3 hours less sleep, because it can take you longer to get acclimatized to the time zone. So I think you're best off trying to get into the new time zone as soon as you can. Even if you're like arsehole tired the first day and you go to bed at like 8:30, that's fine. Just get yourself into that routine. Like, when I first got to Vancouver, I was falling asleep at like 8:30 in the evening and waking up at like 4:30. But I actually quite liked it, because I was like, I get up at 4:30 and do my work, and then I go off skiing all day and piss around. So it's great.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I'm glad I asked that follow-up question. I think that's real. It's real value right there. So, Charlie, this has been truly remarkable. I mean, obviously you and I could I think chat for forever, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in a month or so. But I do want to obviously be respectful of your time, be respectful of the audience. So we have one last question that we'll end every single episode with, so we're going to end with that. But before we do that, Charlie, if you can, let everybody know where to reach out to you. Where can they connect with you online? Podcast, Instagram, YouTube, all the different areas. If they're interested in your coaching, where can they learn more about that? And we'll bring today to a wrap here.
So best place to check me out would probably be my Instagram, which is at Charlie Johnson Fitness. My YouTube is at Charlie Johnson Fitness as well. You can search that up. I've also got my own podcast, which is The Shredded Show. You can even just type in theshreddedshow.com and Google. We have LinkedIn, TikTok, all the good stuff at Charlie Johnson Fitness. If you want a free copy of my new abs training course as well, if you type in freeabsguide.com into search bar, that will come up. And if anyone needs any help, feel free to just drop me a message on Instagram, LinkedIn, any of the platforms directly. If you just put the word podcast, then I know we've come from this podcast here.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Hell of a domain you got there. Free Abs Guide. That was available.
$20 as well. That's well spent.
Oh, okay. It's not bad, guys. Yeah, we'll get all that information shared. Check out the Ab Guide. Check out Charlie's Instagram. I mean, from an educational, from a teaching, from an exercise standpoint, you get to see behind the scenes of this life that this man is living around the globe. Truly inspiring. So we'll definitely get all that dropped down in the show notes or on YouTube. We'll have it in the description box. But Charlie, as we bring it to a close here, we like to end every single episode with this last question. Obviously, the title of the show is The Superhuman Life. And for me, it's been a product of my own life's journey, which, we talked a little bit about, and, I'm sure at some point we'll really get kind of into what's kind of transpired over the last couple of years. But when I talk about living a superhuman life, for me, Charlie, it's this idea that I do believe that we're all here for a purpose, but that's only half of the equation. We have a responsibility to bring that purpose to life, and it's through our intentions, right? It's through what we do on a day-to-day basis. So for me, living a superhuman life is understanding that there's a purpose and you're pursuing it, but you're aggressively attacking it every single day, 100% with everything that you have. That's what I mean. So for me, Superhuman Life is really a belief system. It's how I try to show up in the world. But I like to get the guest take here. So Charlie Johnson Fitness, as we bring today's conversation to a close, how would you define living a superhuman life?
I think living a superhuman life is living life on your own terms, doing what you want to do, and then trying to help inspire and motivate other people to do the same and maximize who they can be and remove those limiting beliefs. Because I think one of the things that I think about a lot is how the positive impact I can have one other person's life, how that can cascade onto other people. And I think that for me is when you become superhuman, because you're having influence at scale by almost like that olive branch effect down of like, if I can influence 10 people, those 10 people can each influence 10 other people into positive impact, how we can then spread and help as many people as possible.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that 100%. Guys, you heard it here. Be intentional in your efforts, pursue your passions, live with purpose. But for Charlie Johnson Fitness, guys, we love you. We appreciate you. If you're new here, we want to thank you for joining us. If you've been around for a while, We want to thank you for tuning in on a weekly basis, guys. We have seen tremendous growth over these last couple months with the show, and it's all due to you. I'm just a dummy here with a microphone that likes to hear himself talk. You guys are what's driving the impact, and you guys are what is making this podcast really change people's lives. So if you haven't done so yet and you want to support us, make sure to leave a 5-star rating and written review. But more important, there's somebody in your life that needs to hear today's conversation, whether they need some of these sleep hacks, whether they need some of these travel hacks, these fitness things, or just breaking and shattering some of these limiting beliefs. Do us a favor, but more importantly, do them the blessing of sharing this conversation with them. But for Charlie Johnson, Frank Rich, we love you guys, and we'll see you next week.